世界那么大，问题那么多，国际社会期待听到中国声音，看到中国方案。我真诚希望国际社会携起手来，秉持人类命运共同体的理念，把我们这个星球建设得更加和平，更加繁荣。
The words sound commonplace, but they're nevertheless heartwarming.
如果要到那边遇到台风了，是往回赶啊，还是到哪里去避？跟大家照个相吧。
When it comes to places belonging to China, no concession will be made over even an inch of them.
你船已进入我国管辖海域，请你船遵守我国管法规。
Tense confrontations can easily turn to violence, so they should be handled properly.
我们绝不允许半岛生战、生乱。
Criminals may be cunning, but eventually they will be brought to justice. It's early evening and the tide is beginning to ebb. The fishing boats have returned to port. The central harbour in the town of Tianmen is crowded with boats. This weather-beaten fishing boat is the Qionghai 09045. 4 years ago, it witnessed an historic moment. The 1,000-year-old fishing port is a gateway to the South China Sea. On April the 8th, 2013, less than a month after becoming Chinese president, Xi Jinping arrives in this small town which has a population of 20,000. His visit is significant. 2 months earlier, the Philippines government under Benigno Aquino unilaterally initiated an arbitration case against China on the issue of the South China Sea. President Xi Jinping's visit to Tianmen demonstrates the new Chinese leadership's firm commitment to safeguarding China's maritime sovereignty.
如果要到那边遇到台风了，是往回赶啊，还是到哪里去避？
有那个招牌很多，我们都到招牌上我们熟的，我们熟在哪里可以避风，
都知道的。
都知道的。
这两次出去有没有碰到也是找麻烦的其他国家？
那个已经呢，中国一政啊，都维护我们的。
跟大家照个相吧。
好，开始照了，大家高兴一点，开始照了。鼓鼓掌，大家来鼓鼓掌，鼓鼓掌，哎。
我们整个南海都是，整个南沙都跑光了，最远是真门沙。
这个是我们的指中海的。
The Ganglu Bu, or Manual of Sea Routes, is a navigation log of the South China Sea compiled by Chinese seafarers since the Yuan dynasty. It records the names and locations of the islands of the South China Sea. It provides irrefutable evidence that Chinese fishermen discovered and were the first to develop the islands of the South China Sea. In 2011, the United States initiated a strategy of returning to the Asia-Pacific. As a result, the South China Sea became increasingly unstable. Interference by outside forces made the situation very dangerous, and this had a direct impact on people's lives. While one country played out the diplomatic farce of South China Sea arbitration, another was playing the military supremacy card of free navigation rights.
2013年，菲律宾单方面提起这样一个南海仲裁，它是等于是绕开了这样一种规则，它是对过去中国和菲律宾我们达成的共识是一个破坏和违背。
菲律宾那里很猖狂啊，派那个军舰出来管我们了，但是我们都说我们是我们中国的领土。
进去赶我们呢，不是还想刺激我们？
那信号弹也打到我们的后面在晚上。
The tense regional situation caused anxiety and fear, and not only among the fishermen from Tianmen. It also made life hard for Randy Gonzalez, a banana grower in Davao in the Philippines.
That happened in 2013 that I chopped down my 1,000, almost 1,000 bands.
China's aim is to build itself into a strong, non-hegemonic nation whose seas are peaceful. This is in line with the stance pursued since the 18th Communist Party of China National Congress in 2012 of becoming a world power. China will not pursue territorial expansion as the West did before, nor will it be humiliated by acceding to unreasonable demands.
南海诸岛自古以来就是中国领土，维护自身的领土主权和正当合理的海洋权益，是中国政府必须承担的责任。
The general principles China adheres to on this issue are to have a broad vision, see the overall picture, stand up for its rights, and refuse to concede a single inch of its territory. So, China naturally rejected the South China Sea arbitration.
无论仲裁庭做出什么裁决，都是非法的、无效的，中方不会接受，不会承认。
In the face of unfounded accusations, slander, censure, blame, and military provocations, China responded with sea patrols, legal recourse, and diplomacy.
在这个领土主权和海洋权益这些重大的核心利益问题上，我们是没有退路的。我们会通过外交啊方方面面的渠道维护我们的领土主权、海洋权益不被侵犯。
More than 200 islands and reefs are scattered across the 3.5 million square kilometers of the South China Sea.
中国将坚持从直接当事国在尊重历史事实的基础上，根据国际法，通过谈判和协商解决有关争议。
It's March the 31st, 2016 in Washington, D.C. June the 18th in Belgrade, Serbia. June the 25th in Beijing, China. At every opportunity, Xi Jinping reaffirms China's stance on the South China Sea issue and explains China's proposals for resolving it. In May 2016, the 7th ministerial meeting of the China-Arab States Cooperation Forum was held in Qatar. The meeting agreed the Doha Declaration. In it, the Arab League expressed its support for China's stance on the South China Sea issue. The first such declaration by any regional organization, it had a powerful impact in the international community. Subsequently, more than 80 countries and international and regional organizations have backed China's position. And more than 240 political parties and organizations in 120 countries, along with 280 leading think tanks and non-governmental organizations, have voiced support for China's stance on resolving the dispute through negotiations.
在南海仲裁案问题上，一大批政党和政要支持我们的立场，在国际上主动发声，伸张正义，有力维护了国家领土主权和安全利益。
Some of the aspects concerning the South China Sea are not governed by the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea.
If it would focus on the territorial sea aspect, it would overstep its jurisdiction and it would have no right to rule on these questions.
Around the time of the so-called Arbitration Award, the CPC's publicity department hosted 3 major seminars on the South China Sea issue. They were held in The Hague, where the International Court of Justice is based, in Washington, D.C., the US capital, and in Singapore, a member of ASEAN. The aim was to reveal the truth about the so-called Arbitration Award. Wu Shitun is a senior expert on the South China Sea. On July the 5th, 2016, he attended a dialogue for Chinese and US think tanks in Washington, D.C.
不接受、不参与，并不意味着我无所作为。我们采取了一系列的措施，叫庭外斗争，也要告诉美国学者，中国的视角为什么认定南海仲裁案组成的仲裁庭，他没有管辖权。
The China-US dialogue, held the day after US Independence Day, attracted considerable attention. China's former state councillor Dai Bingor made a speech in which he described the award rendered by the arbitral tribunal as a waste of paper. The strong wording, firmness and reasonableness of his speech made a deep impression on those who heard it.
中国人并没有被吓倒，哪怕美国全部10个航母战斗群都开进南海，我想也吓不倒中国人。
On July the 12th, 2016, the Temporary Arbitral Tribunal issued its award. The absurdity of its pronouncement sparked uproar in the international community. Of the 5 arbitrators brought together to form the tribunal, 4 were selected by Ryui Junji, the controversial Japanese president of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea. The temporary tribunal, in a move clearly designed to raise its own status, rented the premises of the Permanent Court of Arbitration at the Peace Palace in The Hague. From the composition of the panel to its award, the tribunal showed time and again that it was not legitimate and not fit to make a ruling.
习近平强调，南海诸岛自古以来就是中国领土，中国在南海的领土主权和海洋权益，在任何情况下不受所谓菲律宾南海仲裁案裁决的影响。
It's July the 12th, 2016. At the Diaoyutai State Guest House in Beijing, Xi Jinping meets President of the European Council Donald Tusk and President of the European Commission Jean-Claude Juncker. He reiterates China's position that it does not accept any proposition or action based on the so-called South China Sea Arbitration Award. In the immediate aftermath of the award, the Chinese government issued 2 statements and 1 white paper. All insisted that China would never accept any claim or action based on the award. They also maintained that China would continue to seek resolution of the dispute through negotiation and consultation on the basis of respecting historical facts and in accordance with international law.
所谓的仲裁庭，它从一开始就是建立在了菲律宾违法行为和非法诉求的基础之上。那么它的存在呢，就不具备合法性。 他所做出的一切裁决都是徒劳的，是没有任何效力的。
在国际法上，我们的观点、我们的立场，得到国际同行的很多的理解和支持。这也使仲裁庭这个裁决的有效性，受到很大的质疑。我们说它是一张废纸，这个在法律上是完全站得住的。
China's position has gained understanding and support from a growing number of countries. Its attitude to the South China Sea dispute is to adhere to the approach of combining struggle with cooperation. Based on the principles of amity, sincerity, mutual benefit, and inclusiveness, and in the direction of building a neighborhood community of shared future, China's maritime cooperation with the ASEAN countries has made steady progress. On October the 18th, 2016, the newly elected Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte visits China. In a joint declaration, the 2 countries indicate that relations have been normalized. His visits, like those by Vietnam's Prime Minister Nguyen Xuan Phuc and Malaysia's Prime Minister Najib Razak, indicates that dialogue and cooperation are now playing the leading role in regional diplomacy.
That is really the aim of China, to improve the lives of all the ASEAN, so that in helping, China would also be assured. So you would it will be trouble-free and everybody happy and everybody comfortable.
Today, China-Philippines relations are less strained and maritime cooperation between China and ASEAN is steadily improving. History is littered with examples of territorial disputes that have escalated into international conflicts. China is opening up a new path where disputes can be turned into opportunities for cooperation.
The idea of China being able to, promote economic cooperation, trade relations with its neighboring countries in Asia is something that is valuable and something that it's a good principle.
Is one that's related to mutual prosperity, what China has been claiming in terms of what it aspires to for the region.
It's midwinter 2016. Typhoon Tokaji is battering the waves off Huangyan Island. The Chinese Coast Guard receives a report from Tanmen that a Chinese fishing boat has rescued 2 Filipino fishermen from drowning near the island. Typhoon Tokaji is powerful enough to capsize any ship. Despite the danger, a Chinese Coast Guard vessel immediately puts to sea. After a day spent battling high winds and waves, it finally brings the Filipino fishermen on board.
他说他们船翻掉以后啊，所有东西都没有了。然后我们政委就号召大家嘛，就是我们自己船员拿出那个什么衣服啊、鞋啊的给他们，就给他们基本上是很好的安置。
3 days later, in the waters east of Huangyan Island, the rescued fishermen are handed over to the Philippines Coast Guard. A Reuters commentary says that this shows a rapid warming in relations between the two countries. In February 2017, the China-Philippine Joint Coast Guard Committee on Maritime Cooperation was established. In June, 20 Filipino Coast Guards arrived in China for a month-long law enforcement training course. Coast Guard diplomacy has become a feature of bilateral relations.
You know, I don't think we would have problem with the Coast Guard. We have the same mission, almost the same. But if it's search and rescue, we will always cooperate.
It's the afternoon of April the 30th, 2017. A Chinese fleet is arriving at the port of Davao in the Philippines. This is the first visit to the country by the Chinese Navy in 7 years. President Duterte is on hand, and he comes on board the Chinese ship Changchuan. May 2017, Guiyang and China is hosting 2 key meetings. At one of the meetings, China and ASEAN reach consensus on the framework for a code of conduct in the South China Sea.
菲律宾和中国的双边关系的前途是光明的，会存在一些挑战，但是我们要把重点放在合作和友谊。
Davao is the largest port city on the island of Mindanao in the southern Philippines. Its hot and humid climate is said to be the reason for the sweetness of its bananas. Randy Gonzalez is happy with this year's harvest.
Because if the relationship between China will be continue like this, the business industry will be good.
Philippines are many boxes go to China, and we earn more salary this month.
The bananas, after being packed and loaded in containers, are shipped from Davao to China. The voyage traces the course of a thriving trade route.
Of the 10 vessels that are calling the ICT every week, 7 vessels go to China.
Working together is the only way to resolve disputes. On August the 5th, 2017, the 50th ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting is held in the Philippines. The next day, the framework for the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea is officially adopted. Years of hard work have finally paid off.
中方愿同东盟国家一道努力，将南海建设成为和平之海、友谊之海、合作之海。
It's been over 4 years since Xi Jinping was in Tianmen. In the calmer regional situation, the Chinese people and those of the neighboring countries now have the opportunity to share happiness and good harvests. Under the leadership of the CPC, with Xi Jinping as the core, China has stood firm in safeguarding its sovereignty and its rights and interests in the South China Sea. With a strong wind blowing over the area, Chinese Coast Guard vessels are sailing to the Diaoyu Islands.
中国海警船隊、こちらは日本国海上保安庁巡視船 TL81 である。
When the Chinese Coast Guard are patrolling near the Diaoyu Islands, they often encounter Japanese Coast Guard vessels demanding that they leave the area. But the reply from the Chinese ships is always firm and clear.
日本海保厅巡逻船，这里是中国海监编队。中国海监编队正在中国管辖海域巡航，
引船已进入我国管辖海域，引船遵守我国法规。日本海上保安庁近線、こちらは中国海艦船隊。中国海艦船隊は中国の管轄海域でテレのパトロールを行っています。以前は我が国の管轄海域に侵入した我が国の国旗を守ってください。
Xinjiang's duties include asserting China's sovereignty by issuing warnings to Japanese ships. In 2013, he became popular on the internet and acquired a nickname, Recitation Boy.
早上我们进入领海，当时已经看到日本船，在确认他的身份之后，我们领导当机立断，就是马上喊话，对他声明主权。
The dangers faced by China's Coast Guard vessels patrolling close to the Diaoyu Islands come not only from foreign intrusions. At times, the ships also have to confront terrifying sea conditions. But whatever the threats and dangers, the Chinese Coast Guards always act with courage and stand firm in safeguarding the nation's sovereignty. It's September the 11th, 2012 in Tokyo. Ignoring China's strong protests and repeated representations, the Japanese government claims to have purchased 2 islands in the Diaoyu group at a cost of $26 million. In the 1970s, in view of the overriding importance of establishing bilateral relations, the Chinese and Japanese governments reached an understanding that the issue of the Diaoyu Islands would be set aside for resolution at a later date.
实现中日邦交正常化的时候，我们也双方约定不涉及这样的问题。
这就是著名的搁置争议，共同开发。到了2012年呢，日本呢采取了一个国有化构岛的这样一个行为，从而激化了双方在钓鱼岛主权问题上的冲突。
The farcical island purchase represented an attack on China's territorial sovereignty. It provoked a strong protest from China and a full range of diplomatic countermeasures. On September the 10th, 2012, the Chinese Foreign Ministry issued a strongly worded statement calling the islands purchased by the Japanese government wholly illegal and therefore invalid. On September the 11th, CCTV for the first time covered the Diaoyu Islands in its weather forecast. On September the 13th, China's UN ambassador delivered a document to the Secretary General containing a map of the Diaoyu and affiliated islands. On September the 25th, the State Council Information Office published a white paper, Diaoyu Islands, China's Inherent Territory. China, through its firm stance, clarified the Diaoyu Islands issue for the international community and received a positive response. In March 2014, a US-made documentary, Diaoyu Islands: The Truth, was shown in Los Angeles.
The Diaoyu Islands are already shown as part of China in the early maritime charts of the famous Chinese navigator Cheng He. Another historic fact is that Japanese maritime charts of 1783, as well as the official 1876 map of Imperial Japan, show that the Diaoyu Islands were not part of Japan.
The world needs to know the truth because they do not know. And since the Western media is biased against China, the truth is always not being told. And the truth is that the Diaoyu Islands are Chinese and have been since many, many centuries.
Prime Minister, together with the whole cabinet.
In early 2014, the Chinese and Japanese ambassadors to the UK engaged in a fierce debate on the popular BBC programme Newsnight. The exchange, which focused on the South China Sea, was widely reported. Through a display of eloquence and wisdom, Chinese Ambassador Liu Xiaoming defeated his Japanese counterpart Koji Tsuruoka. Within 2 days, 7 other Chinese ambassadors, including those to the US, Russia, Kazakhstan and Ecuador, published their own criticisms of Japan's misguided stance on historical and territorial issues. It's December the 13th, 2012. To coincide with a Coast Guard patrol, China's B-3837 maritime surveillance plane flies over the Diaoyu Islands. This is the first time China has conducted a joint patrol near the Diaoyu Islands.
中国不觊觎他国权益，不嫉妒他国发展，但绝不放弃 我们的正当权益。中国人民不信邪也不怕邪，不惹事儿也不怕事儿。任何外国不要指望我们会拿自己的核心利益做交易，不要指望我们会吞下损害我国主权、安全、发展利益的苦果。
Under the leadership of the CPC, with President Xi Jinping as the core, China has always been a contributor to world peace. It's committed to promoting, defending and sharing peace with every country in the world. In September 2014, China and Japan launched a new round of high-level consultations on maritime affairs. 2 months later, they reached a 4-point agreement on the principles for handling and improving bilateral relations. It's November the 10th, 2014. Xi Jinping has agreed to a request from Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe for a meeting. Abe is in China to attend an APEC summit. This is the first time the leaders of China and Japan have met face-to-face since the island purchase fiasco. Xi Jinping expresses the hope that the Japanese side will handle issues properly, in line with the 4-point agreement.
中日之间达成4点原则共识呢，要坚决捍卫中国领土主权的这样一个共同的决心。我们希望这个问题呢能够得到妥善的处理，绕开漩涡，避免冲突的危险性，推动了两国关系向前发展。
As neighbours separated by a narrow strip of water, win-win cooperation must be their ultimate goal. In October 2015 and September 2016, the 11th and 12th Beijing-Tokyo forums were held in Beijing and Tokyo, respectively. More than 1,000 representatives from China and Japan participated in the dialogues. In June 2017, the 7th round of China-Japan high-level consultations on maritime affairs held in Fukuoka, Japan, confirmed the principle of carrying out bilateral maritime cooperation by managing differences through dialogue. Reflecting on history shows that one can go forward steadily only when vortexes and swift currents are avoided. Looking to the future, one should not fear lingering clouds in seizing the opportunity for peace and development. On the East China Sea, dialogue and cooperation are the sole path to a brighter future. The situation on the Korean Peninsula has been complex and volatile for some time. The DPRK has carried out several nuclear tests and ballistic missile launches, while the United States and South Korea have held regular joint military exercises. As a result, conflict could break out at any moment. Time and again, storm clouds gather over the Korean Peninsula, the place known as the last outpost of the Cold War.
作为半岛近邻，我们绝不允许半岛生战、生乱。一旦发生这样的情况，对谁都没有好处。
The eyes of the world are focused on a meeting on the western side of the Pacific. For the first time, Chinese President Xi Jinping is coming face-to-face with his US counterpart, Donald Trump. During the meeting, the two presidents exchange views on the DPRK issue. Both reaffirm their commitment to the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. In the 3 months after their meeting, the two presidents exchange 3 phone calls in which they discuss the situation in Korea. Xi and Trump meet again at the G20 summit in Hamburg, when Xi reiterates to Trump that China is committed to the denuclearization of the peninsula, to peace and stability there, and to the resolution of issues through dialogue and consultation. China has repeatedly explained that it will maintain communication and work closely with all parties involved in the Korea issue.
在朝鲜半岛问题上呢，习近平总书记和外国领导人见面时谈的最多的话题之一。中国的立场是一贯的、明确的，就是3个坚持：坚持实现半岛无核化，坚持维护半岛和平稳定，坚持通过对话协商解决问题。
In a bid to resolve the situation on the Korean Peninsula, China has launched a double suspension initiative and a dual-track proposal. These objective, reasonable and practical approaches have contributed considerably to diffusing tension on the peninsula, promoting the restart of contacts and dialogue, and maintaining regional peace and stability.
中方提出了双暂停倡议，就是朝鲜暂停核岛活动，美韩暂停大规模联合军演。倡议的出发点就是给局势降温，为通过对话接触、政治解决问题创造条件，维护半岛的和平稳定。
It's July the 6th, 2017. In Berlin, President Xi Jinping is holding talks with South Korean President Moon Jae-in. They exchange views on the situation on the Korean peninsula. President Xi says once again that China is committed to the denuclearization of the peninsula, to peace and stability there, and to the resolution of the issue through dialogue and consultation. Asia is on the rise. In an era of change, worries and doubts are hard to avoid. On the one hand, Asia is an engine of the world economy. On the other, it's vulnerable to security threats and conflicts.
要跟上时代前进步伐，就不能身体已进入21世纪，而脑袋还停留在冷战思维、零和博弈的旧时代。我们认为应该积极倡导共同、综合、合作、可持续的亚洲安全观。 创新安全理念，搭建地区安全和合作新架构，努力走出一条共建、共享、共赢的亚洲安全之路。
Xi Jinping, in advocating common, comprehensive, cooperative and sustainable security in Asia, is charting a path for future security cooperation in the region. It's the morning of June the 2nd, 2015. The Gulf of Aden has been battered by strong winds and high waves. Marine commandos belonging to the Chinese Navy's 20th Escort Fleet are traveling in small launches alongside the Yuan Chuanhu oil tanker. The tanker, which is carrying almost $300 million worth of crude oil, is en route for the southern tip of the Maldives Strait. In these exposed waters, the Yuan Chuanhu represents an easy target for pirates. Having travelled for 50 hours under escort, the tanker reaches safety. For Chinese merchant ships operating in the Gulf of Aden, the commandos and naval escorts are a vital security guarantee. Over the past 5 years, China has been more focused than ever before on protecting its overseas interests. In November 2014, at a meeting of the CPC to discuss foreign affairs, Xi Jinping stated that China's overseas interests should be properly safeguarded, and to this end, protection efforts stepped up. On May the 26th, 2015, for the first time, a National Defence White Paper refers to areas of crucial importance to China's overseas interests. Guaranteeing China's sustainable development in the era of globalization requires the country's military to go global to protect the country's interests. Up until July 2017, the Chinese Navy had maintained a 100% safety record for vessels it had escorted. It's July the 11th, 2017. The Jinggangshan and Donghaidao are departing from Zhanjiang in Guangdong province. The ceremony, though short, makes headlines. The vessels are carrying Chinese military personnel headed for the PLA's first overseas support base in Djibouti. This is a milestone in the Chinese military's going global process that has been increasingly high profile over the past 5 years. A guard of honour of the 3 services of the PLA took part in the military parade marking the 70th anniversary of Russia's victory in World War II. A Chinese Navy fleet participated in the RIMPAC 2014 military exercise off Hawaii. The Chinese vessel, the Xiangtan, was in Germany for Kiel Week. Chinese Navy ships paid a goodwill visit to the United Kingdom. The Chinese naval contingent visited Saudi Arabia. China's military, with its calm and assertive demeanour, conveys to the world the country's sincerity and resolve in sharing peace with every country and in maintaining global and regional security and stability. With China's development, an increasing number of its citizens and businesses are heading overseas. This going global trend has occasionally been blighted by incidents targeting Chinese enterprises and individuals. With the global security situation deteriorating, safeguarding the country's interests overseas is facing more complex challenges than ever before. The Golden Triangle is synonymous with the production of illegal drugs. It's March 2013, and on the Mekong River, law enforcement officers from China and Laos are conducting a joint operation.
3月19日凌晨发回了这种信息，说是这艘船只已经装满了疑似的毒品，开始从索林码头出发。
The operation has lasted for 6 months and involves more than 40 people. Now, after a 3-hour chase, officers of the China-Laos Joint Law Enforcement Team have succeeded in stopping the vessel, the Qianyu. On board, they find large quantities of ice.
当时这艘船的5名嫌疑犯都已经抓获，在后舱的甲板下面查获到了毒品，这批毒品是579.7公斤。
The morning of October the 5th, 2011, 2 commercial vessels, the Huaping and Yuxing 8, have been hijacked on the Golden Triangle section of the Mekong River. 13 Chinese sailors have been brutally murdered by a drugs gang. The Mekong River massacre shocks the whole world. In response, and on China's initiative, China, Laos, Myanmar and Thailand establish a joint security cooperation mechanism in the Mekong River basin. The Golden Watercourse is prospering again. For Chinese commercial shipping on the Mekong, the presence of their country's law enforcement vessels offers convenience and safety. It's July the 28th, 2014, and in talks with Chomali Sayason, the president of Laos, Xi Jinping calls for security cooperation in bilateral law enforcement to be deepened. He says joint patrols and border controls should be strengthened in order to crack down on terrorism and cross-border crimes. The Safe River Joint Anti-Drugs Program, launched in 2013, has proved highly successful. By the end of 2016, more than 20,000 people have been arrested on drugs-related charges. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime considers the program a model for regional cooperation in the fights against drugs trafficking. In 2015, Cambodia and Vietnam joined the Safe River program. This raised the number of participating countries to 6. As a successful security cooperation mechanism on the Mekong River, it represents a new path of cooperation in law enforcement.
So for 3 years plan, we have 6 countries working together with its smuggling along Mekong River and Golden Triangle area.
From its military going global to its law enforcement going global, wherever Chinese feet are planted, Chinese protection follows. China's diplomacy in adhering to the principle of serving ordinary people is now making use of a wider range of resources and measures. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon on November the 16th, 2016, a flight from the United States arrives in Beijing. On board is Yang Xiaozhu, who is top of the list of China's 100 most wanted overseas fugitives. She has spent 13 years on the run.
我还劝跟我一样的这些官员或者这些逃出去的这些人，你们想想看，我是红通1号，我们的祖国对我也就是这么礼待了，请他们快回来。
China's Fugitive Repatriation and Asset Recovery Office, under the Central Anti-Corruption Coordination Group established in June 2014, has worked hard to bring Yang Xiaozhu to justice.
杨秀珠他是这个百名红通之首，所以他的归案呢，应该说意义重大。中美双方啊，在杨秀珠这个案件上开展了卓有成效的合作。
腐败分子即使逃到天涯海角，也要把他们追回来，绳之以法。5年
10年、20年都要追，切断腐败分子的后路。
In June 2014, the Fugitive Repatriation and Asset Recovery Office was established. The following month, the Fox Hunt campaign was launched, followed in March 2015 by the Skynet operation. A month later, a list of China's top 100 fugitives was published in an Interpol Red Notice. No one can escape justice. In the past 5 years in particular, China has stepped up its international operations to combat corruption.
总书记明确把这个指导这项工作纳入在执法合作，要求纳入外交工作的整体的布局。他80多次在不同的国际场合来提及此事，应该上取得了非常大的成效。
It's November 2014. At the 22nd APEC Economic Leaders Meeting held beside Yanqi Lake in Beijing, the Beijing Declaration on Fighting Corruption is adopted.
我们大力推动亚太反腐败合作，建立亚太经合组织反腐败执法合作网络，就追逃、追赃、开展执法合作等达成重要共识。
This is the first anti-corruption declaration named after a capital city in APEC's history. It's also a clear statement of China's uncompromising stance on dealing with corruption.
我们的目标就是要打消所有违法分子的幻想，让他们明白，海外不是法外，闭罪没有天堂。
Western countries have now begun working with China in the fight against corruption. A number of major fugitives have now been repatriated or extradited to China from various countries, including the United States, Canada, Australia, and Singapore.
今天呢，受党和政府政策的感召，我从美国回到了中国，接受组织的审查。
In the past 5 years, the party's Central Committee, with Xi Jinping as the core, has strengthened China's cooperation with the international community in the fight against corruption. No place on earth will ever be a safe haven for fugitives. By the end of May 2017, 3,051 Chinese fugitives in 90 countries and regions had been arrested, and almost $1.5 billion in illicit assets recovered. By the end of July, 43 Chinese fugitives named in the Interpol Red Notice had been arrested. Xi Jinping has been leading China to forge ahead in developing its international relations. Whether struggling for sovereignty and territorial integrity, ensuring national and global security, or protecting the country's development interests, Chinese diplomacy is revealing strength, courage, and a sense of responsibility.
中国人民珍爱和平，我们绝不搞侵略扩张，但我们有战胜一切侵略的信心。我们绝不允许任何人、任何组织、任何政党，在任何时候、以任何形式，把任何一块中国领土 从中国分裂出去，谁都不要指望我们会吞下损害我国主权、安全、发展利益的苦果。
Through words and actions, China is demonstrating its diplomatic resolve.